Morning. I didn't want to say who the guest speaker was in fear of you might all leave. I told Mickey if they start leaving, just lock that door. Don't let nobody out. So, I thought about giving Brock the opportunity to do the morning lesson, but I figured I'd just get mine done first and get it over with, and that way I could enjoy the day, because it takes a lot of study and a lot of time, and so I think Sherry's made a special meal since it's being Father's Day, and so I want to just be able to get in that lazy chair and sit back and watch some golf, Denny. And so I asked Sherry what she got me for Father's Day, and that's always exciting times, and she said the same thing I got her for Mother's Day. So I didn't get anything. But anyway, what I want to talk about this morning, and I do want to, I missed something, and I'm glad John mentioned in his prayer, in that VBS. My, oh my, did we have a great week, John. And is this too many, Carl? Thank you, but there's just so many involved in it. And I don't want to leave anybody out. But we had I think, a great time. For most evenings, we feel decided with kids. And that made me think a lot about my lesson today, because what I'm going to talk about is, children, but parenting, and the importance of that, and so I think about all of the parents that made sure, and the grandparents that made sure that them kids were here, but we're so thankful for that, and again, I just wish I had time to go down the list, but we thank everybody involved in that, and everybody that supported that. And again, we're thankful for visitors that are with us. I'm glad that I got one of my own here. Justin, of course, Justin and Lindsay and the family, they attend in Parkersburg, but I'm glad they come our way this morning. Me and Sherry are very, very blessed with two really, really, really good sons and beautiful daughter-in-laws, and just really great grandkids. And so we're blessed so much, and we thank God every day for that. But again, we're thankful for you and that you're here. And I'm going to try, if I just don't get rattled on things that's not really in my lesson, I think we'll be fine. We'll get through this pretty quick. I don't want to keep it any longer than we have to. It's always good, I think, when we have a lesson. It don't have to be anything very long. Just as long as we get the point across, and that's what my goal is this morning. Is to get a point across here and I think something that is much needed today in the world that we live in. And there's a lot of crazy things that we see and hear about, and all around us, and just a matter of time that these things, if they're in other states, they usually will make it here too. We're really blessed to live in a state, an area that we don't see as much as this stuff has been being taught in other places, but in saying that, I guess that one of the things I'm talking about is, you hear a lot about, is this woke ideology, crazy stuff that's out there, and it's scary, and we need to be aware of it, and that's the reason, good parenting. I know we got several here in the congregation that teach in these schools, and they know more about it. They hear a lot about this stuff, more so than what I know. But I know that homosexuality is rampant in our world, our country, and here at home, and things like that. And it's scary with that. Same-sex marriage in most states now is legal. And so a lot of this stuff that, we need to be aware of, and we need to teach our children as parents what's right and what's wrong, and and there's so many of this, even this gender thing that I think is creeping into all around us. And I don't understand that. I truly don't understand that, because of all of the, you think about the sin and all the immoral things that goes with that. I mean, if God, if you're born, if you as a male, and you think you need to be a female, I don't understand that, or vice versa, and then all of the doctors that are behind some of this stuff, those who perform surgeries and the medication, and for nothing. If we're a male or if we're a female, there's no changing that. They can maybe, in appearance, make you look like something else, but that is about as far as it goes. And somewhere down the road, and I've been hearing more and more about this, that these that have done this have having really issues, mental issues. And so God didn't intend for us to be something else, an animal or whatever we think we might ought to be. But this is some crazy stuff, I think, that we're faced with. And I don't know, and I don't think it's going to get any better, but somebody I'd heard say something about this woke, that the woke better get woke up, because they're on a road, they're on a way that's sinful, immoral, and a road that leads to, as Jesus says over in Matthew, they're on that broad way that leads to destruction unless they make a change. And we can all make changes, and our prayer and is that they can do that. And I think about those that in our country, in our world today, and I think that there's just so many that don't know God. They don't know God. They've never been taught about God. And when I think about that, I think, well, somebody failed. They had parents. Their parents failed to teach them. Apparently, they failed to be taught about God and a godly life. And so I picked the book of Proverbs to think about this, and there's so many verses. I'll tell you what I did. I've cut so many verses out of. I kind of went, as I've been going over my lesson. If I hadn't cut them out, we'd been here 2 hours. So I thought, man, they ain't gonna want that. So I cut a lot of scriptures out, but I've got some that I hope that I can kind of prove a point, and that'll benefit all of us. And in Proverbs, there is a book about wisdom, a book here that was written, penned by Solomon, and in there is many of instructions, guidelines for parenting for the home, and that's what I want to get across. In the book of Proverbs, teaches us how to live a godly life in an ungodly world. And you know, this is nothing new. This as we can look back through all the times, and even back in the Bible times, this has always been an issue. And so it's nothing new, but we need to do our best. God expects us. He expects us to do our best. And Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7, it says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instructions." And so it's pretty self-explanatory here as he begins here. He says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And I want us to think about the fear of the Lord. That's one thing I'm going to hit on here pretty often here this morning in my talk here. The fear of the Lord and as the beginning of knowledge. And that's what we want for our children, for our homes. We want knowledge. We want that wisdom, and for ourselves and for our children. And this wisdom and fear of the Lord, we're going to see here in Proverbs, go hand in hand. They're inseparable, and again, much needed, and much need to be taught in our homes. And as I mentioned there just a minute or two ago about parenting and the things that we see and know throughout the world today, and I said somebody failed. Parents have failed, and I want to think about just three different separate incidents here recently, and most of you know these stories, but one of them being right up the road here. This is close to home, and I, of course, seen it on the news that a 7-year-old was taken into custody for burning down their home. 7-year-old taken into custody for burning down a home. Now, as far as I know, Mom and Dad was able to escape maybe without injuries. I don't know his intentions. A 7-year-old, was he going to burn up Mom and Dad? I don't know. But where in the world would a 7-year-old ever get those types of thoughts? What kind of parenting would they be that he would ever even think about at that age doing such an act? Another that I remember seeing on the news, this was somewhere else in another state, but recently, I think it was a 6-year-old boy who brought a gun to school and shot his teacher. Now, she survived, but a 6-year-old to bring a gun to school? I don't understand why he would even think to do such an act. Parents. There couldn't be no parenting there. What kind of parents could he have to even think to do such a thing? And just recently, I seen on the news, and this is here again in the county, I think at Fairplain, I seen where they took this mom and dad into custody, and I think there was another person even living in an apartment, but they were taken into custody because they had 3 little kids, little babies, a set of twins and another one, and they'd been neglected, abused, and starved to death. One, I think, if I heard right, he was in intensive care. As far as I know, they've gotten better. But what kind of parents would ever think? What kind of parents could you be to ever let that happen? So it just, and I think, well, maybe they didn't have good parents. And maybe their parents wasn't good parents. But I'm saying we've got to start with our parenting. We've got to be good parents. And God expects us. He expects us to be good parents. And I know me and Brock have talked about this. They're just recently, families. And I told him, I said, things are different. And he said, there's no family base. And he's right. There's no family foundation. There's not very many, I'll say that. Not very many good family foundations. It's not like when I growed up and probably John and some of the older ones, that when we growed up, for the most part, Dad worked out on the job. Mom was home, took care of the kids, took care of all those needs. The kids, there was plenty of work to do, plenty of chores. There was plenty of time to play too. We played outside, run up and down the creeks and over the hillsides. But we was a family, and we was grounded at a good foundation. We knew right from wrong, but it's not that way. Things has changed today, and today is such a challenge. It's more of a challenge maybe than it was when I growed up. And so I think we're blessed here. We're blessed here at Sandyville with good, godly parents, and I know that they're teaching their children to be Christian children, and that's what we want to do. And we have a great responsibility. And again, that is a great challenge before us today. But in spite of all the challenges that are associated with raising children, we need to understand the responsibility in stewarding their little lives as God has entrusted us as parents. And we only have, and believe me, we only have a short time. It's just a brief time to raise them kids. And once it's gone, there's no second chance, you see. No second chance, no going back, and there ain't no do-overs. And it's a task of a lifetime. If I told you it wasn't, I wouldn't be truthful. It's a task of a lifetime. And I guess I probably see that more and better since my kids are growing. Would I like some do-overs? Yeah, I probably would. Would I change some things? Yeah, I probably would. I spent a lot of my time when my kids was growing up out of town. Sherry, bless her heart, and I'm thankful that she raised the kids for the most part, and made sure they was in church probably every time that the doors was open. And I say there probably would have had to been roads would have to be pretty much impassable. The kids must have been very, very sick for her not to be there with them kids. And so I'm thankful that she was able to do that. But I if I had a chance to change things, I'd like to go back, but I can't. Once that's gone, it's gone. But God has blessed me and Sherry, and He's blessed us with just a good, godly family, and we're thankful for that. But I think about, we think about the little ones here, and I thought about that all week with Bible school, and we have all ages. And Dustin and Lindsay, maybe they have the youngest, but we have all ages, and it's just and they'll cry. I know Lindsay made a remark the other night, but I said that's fine. That's good to hear them. It's good to hear them. Good to know they're here. They get a little fussy. That's okay. But you know what? It don't take long. They're going to be crawling, walking, talking. They're going to start to school, and they're going to graduate. And it don't take long. I'll tell you what. And you could probably just ask Brent, Melissa. They'll tell you. They're Megan, and it just seemed like yesterday. She was just like one of them old little ones here, running when church was over. She'd run and run out. And the reason I remember that, Megan, the reason I remember this, because she fell a few times. And I'll tell you what, I remember she'd have an egg on her forehead, but it didn't seem to hurt her. No damage, I don't believe, no damage. She's done very good. She's a good girl. And she's graduated from high school, and she is going to start college this fall. Now, it just don't seem right, because that just seemed like John just yesterday when she was just a little thing. So I say that to say, they just grow up so fast. And so we need to, do our best as parents. Now I'm going to get moving on here because I don't want to run us behind. Of course, our reading this morning, and we're looking in Proverbs, and of course, Proverbs was written by Solomon. And I just want to, I don't know, just a little thing to think about. I know I don't have time to talk a whole lot about Solomon, but listen to this about Solomon. And we've got to go back to 1 Kings. We also could read about it in Chronicles, but 1 Kings is a good place to go. 1 Kings there in chapter 3, and I'm going to jump around in some verses here to get to say what I need to say here. Chapter 3, verses 5 and verse 9, and then jump right over to chapter 4. There, starting 29. But verse 5 here, it says, in Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. And God said, ask what you wish me to give you. Verse 9, he says, so give thy servant an understanding heart, to judge thy people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of thine? Chapter 4, verse 29, now God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind like the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the sons of the east and all of the wisdom of Egypt. And he was wiser than all men. So Solomon, wiser than all men, pens these words in Proverbs. And he didn't write. He did not all of Proverbs. I think the last few chapters was by another writer. But my, oh my, there's just so much here that in Proverbs to look at and to take from these for a home, for a family, and for parenting, and that's kind of what I want to do. And again, I probably pulled too many scriptures out that would help me a lot, but again, I don't want to run out of time with that. But I want to think there first. Let me read Proverbs in chapter 1, right there close to where we was at. Let me just read their verses 8 and 9. And he says here, hear, my son, your father's instructions, and do not forsake your mother's teachings. Indeed, they are a graceful wreath to your head and ornaments about your neck. And so I think around 10, maybe 10 different times there that I know even the scripture I had Mickey to read begins with, "Hear, O sons," and it's about 10 times there, I believe, in these verses that he begins with my son. And so I want you to think about this and kind of picture like a father and a son relationship. And I think the best way to do this, to see what he's saying here in Proverbs. And you see, he's introducing the concept of wisdom, the instructions, teachings, the fear of the Lord. And his efforts is to persuade, you see. He wants to persuade his son to the paths of wisdom so that he might live a godly and a successful life. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we would want to pray for our homes, for our children? And that's what we need, godly parents teaching our children. Now another thing I wanted to think about parents. Raising children can't be farmed out. You know, in today's world, we farm out a lot of stuff. We outsource a lot of stuff, but you can't do that with our children. You can't do that with children. And don't think our children are okay on their own, because they're not. They're not. And I think so many times, and it's easy to do, parents, is to occupy them children, set them down in front of a TV, and let that TV occupy them while we're off doing whatever we're doing. Now, I'm going to tell you, and I probably don't have to tell you, I think you know, that's probably one of Satan's greatest tools, that television. I think the greatest is a cell phone. I think that's his greatest tool. But TV is right behind it. I'll tell you what, a lot of the stuff on TV is not even fit for me and you to watch. You've got to be careful. It's getting worse and worse all the time. And even these cartoons, you need to be careful with what them kids are watching, even on the Disney stuff, because they're putting stuff in there. They're putting little stuff in there that's not good, and so we need to be careful with that. And God, in His wisdom, has given this responsibility. See, He's given that responsibility to us, for parents. That's all responsibility, and there's no one. I'm telling you right now, there's no one more important to them children. There's no one more important than mom and dad. Mom and dad. And Proverbs 22, and most of us are probably pretty familiar with this verse, Proverbs 22 and verse 6. And this says here to train up a child in a way that he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Responsibility to train up a child. So when they're little, that's when the training needs to begin. And we don't need to neglect that because, again, it's so important. And you know, and I think about that as Christian children, and as we grow and as we go out in the world, you know, sometimes we might, and we do, fall away. But you know, when you're trained up, parents, when you train up that child, and maybe for some reason you do leave, you know what? You know the way back. You know the way back, and for the most part, the most times, you'll find your way back. But if you've never been trained up, if you've never been taught, then you don't know any different. All you know is the world and the ways of the world, and so you don't know no different. So we need to train them in their early times, and we have just a small window of opportunity while they're in our homes, and that's what I said a while ago. It goes by fast, so we just got this small opportunity to do that, and we need to prepare them. See, we need to prepare them for the life that God has for them, and not the life that the world has for them, but the life that God has for them. That's a responsibility. That's a huge responsibility that we have, and need to teach them every day and talk to them every day. There's all kind of good. I know storybooks and Bible time books, and we need to take time out. And I know that Cooper, he likes his little books, and he likes if you sit down and read to him, and even I know that I'm thankful that Brock and Lydia do that, and the example that I know that prayer and to have a story time with him and prayer at night, I think some of the best things that we can do when they're little, that they'll understand, and that's how they want to carry on. You know, when just like anything we teach these young, good or bad, even the bad stuff, if they get taught, well, you know what? That's things they're going to do. But these good things is what we want to teach them. These good habits and habits to study and to know God and to understand God, but to teach them this wisdom and this fear of the Lord, and that is what is most needed in their lives. And we need to be that example. We need, as parents, we need to be that example so that we can just pass this right on to them. And if we're not the example, then we're not going to do them any good. But we need to be that example that we can pass these good traits, these godly traits, right on to them. Proverbs 1:7. I think I read that earlier, but I'm going to read that again. I'm going to read that. I'm going to read chapter 9. I want to hit it, chapter 9 and verse 10. And I want us to see here just about the fear of the Lord we're talking about and how it goes hand in hand. But it says here again in 7, I'll read it again, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It says, fools despise wisdom and instruction. In verse 10 over in chapter 9, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So they go hand in hand, and again, this is the best possible life for our children, is to teach them the fear of the Lord. Also, we can kind of read into this a little bit more and understand it maybe a little bit more in chapter 2 there of Proverbs. Chapter 2, and I think there's just so many benefits from teaching this wisdom and this fear of the Lord. But listen to what it says here. I'm going to read here in Proverbs chapter 2. Let me kind of read down to verse 9. But he says here, it begins again with my son. He says, if you will receive my sayings and treasure my commandments within you, make your ear attentive to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding, for if you cry for discernment, lift your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, listen what you get, what happens, then you will discern the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God, for the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, and he preserves the way of his godly ones. Then you will discern righteousness and justice and equality and every good course. Benefits. Many, many benefits from this wisdom, from this fear of the Lord. And I hope that's what we pray for our children. And this is the wisdom that guides and guards and blesses us when we live with the fear of the Lord. You know, I'm afraid that, let me say this. When we think about fear, usually when you mention the word fear, you think about something that you're going to run away from, isn't it? You know, if I'm approached maybe by, maybe I'm hunting, Brent, and maybe I do run into some kind of a bear or something that, first thing I get a little scared, I think maybe I better get out of there. A little fear. And that's something that I'd run away from. But this fear of the Lord is one that we want to run to. It's one you want to run to, not away from, but we want to run to God. And I know when we look around the world today and we think about guiding and guarding and protecting our children, we don't want to make any mistakes. I'm telling you, no room for mistakes. Because mistakes carries with it consequences. Bad consequences usually. Lifelong consequences. So we got to be very careful that we do everything right. That we teach them godly things. This wisdom. This fear of the Lord. Well, that's going to bring me up to close to where I need to be. And I hope that each of us can see the value. I hope we can see the value of teaching the fear of the Lord that brings wisdom into the lives of our children. I think it's important, and there's many other verses that in Proverbs there, and again, I talk a lot of them out because of, again, I don't want to run it into a lot of time, but boy, there's so much there. There's just so much there for our learning and for parenting and for the home, for the family. And sometimes I don't know if we talk about it as much as we ought to. We need to. It's something we need to talk about often, because there is it starts with you. It starts with you. It starts with parents. These kids is the future. They're the future. We pray there's the future of the church. They're the future of our country. So it's got to start. It's got to start somewhere, and it's got to start with godly parents. And again, I think, and I just know that with everything that you see and you hear today, we're lacking godly parents. So it starts with you, and I want us to I think we're very blessed here, Sandyville. We're blessed with good parents, but we don't want to let our guard down. We want to keep and continue doing that good work. And again, I thought about that a lot this week, and we're just blessed. But I want to offer an invitation, and I mentioned a while ago Matthew, but over in Matthew chapter 7, there in verse 13 and 14, it says to enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. For the gate is small, and the way is narrow that leads to life, and few are those that find it. I said there a while ago, I think there are many that are, when we talked about fear, many running away from God. They're not running to God. I think many are running away from God. And I think about that, and I'm sure that they don't know God, or they wouldn't run away. They don't know God because nobody ever taught them about God. They don't have a clue what they're running away from. Again, it starts with parents. Many was never taught how to be godly. And that's a reason that we're in the shape we're in. in our country. And so I think about that, and if in a way of an invitation, if you were here and maybe you found yourself running on that broad way, that way that leads to destruction, running away from God. Well, you need to stop, you need to turn around, and you need to get on that narrow way. You need to do that today, because there may not be a tomorrow. Maybe you've done that, but for some reason you've got off that narrow way and out there on that broad way. Well, you need to stop and you need to come back. You can do that. Our prayer is that you would do that today. I know that we have a lot of struggles, and many have struggles in life, and if you are struggling and there's again we're living in some pretty tough times, we can pray for you, with you. We'll do that. Whatever your needs is, won't you come while we stand and we sing the invitation songs?